Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is KidLee, and this is episode 47 of the TOR Report. In this week's news, the third anniversary for Star Wars The Old Republic is upon us. To celebrate this occasion, you can get the Drummond Costs or the Coruscant Strongholds for only 3 credits each. Then, beginning December 16th, free decoration rewards will be available, including fireworks displays, decorative anniversary paintings, a special holographic projector of the entire galaxy, and a few other items. This event will end on Monday, January 12th, 2015. Let's go ahead and move on to some dev chat. You may have read in the patch notes for 3.0 that the accuracy rating was granting more accuracy per point. As it turns out, the devs decided at the last minute not to implement this change, saying, "I heard back from the combat team and accuracy is right where it should be. The accuracy change that was mentioned on the global combat livestream and in the patch notes never ended up going out. Following internal testing, the team decided not to implement these changes as they were happy where it was when using high and end level 60 gear." Some people on the forums have pointed out that the level 60 group finder does not include the level 55 hard and tactical flashpoints. The devs responded in saying, "We are going to be making the 55 hard mode and tactical flashpoints available in the group finder for level 60 players in 3.0.2. Let's go ahead and move on to what's new. I have 2 new images to show you today on upcoming items. The first is a wall freezer unit that will be a cartel market item. And the second are these colored hollow trees. These will be quest rewards from the upcoming Life Day event. If you would like to submit questions for future shows, send questions to KidLeeASF@gmail.com or send me a message on YouTube. The first question of the day comes in from Alex D and Technoman. They both asked very similar questions, so I'm going to try and knock them both out in one shot here. But let me go ahead and read them. Alex D, his exact question was, "I have just started the game, and I have a Power Tech Advanced class for the Bounty Hunter. I was wondering what armor would be good for a level 11 player, as I only really know about the Imperial Agent. Any good missions for armor would also be useful." And then Technoman, his 2 questions, and your higher level question I'll get to here in a minute. But the 2 questions were, what would be a good way to get endgame gear for your toon and your companion? And then also, what would be the best way to gear while questing, or are quest rewards and drops good enough? So also keep in mind that my response is going to be post 3.0 and post the 12 times experience, because that was a whole game changer on its own. So basically, the gear while leveling based question. You've got a few different options. But as you're going along the different planets, you'll run across those heroic missions. That is a really good way to get comms and to get mostly orange gear out of those. Now, they have done away with the planetary comms, and on the fleet, you've got this section of vendors here in the supplies area, and these are all the planetary vendors. All of these vendors now use the basic comms. But for me, I've always found the best way to gear is to just, do the heroics, do the planet mission, some side missions, and you're going to end up getting plenty of, now the basic comms. So just every once in a while, come to these vendors, like here's the Nar Shaddaa vendor, for instance, and here's all kind of oranges. So you'll want to try and gear your guy out in oranges or moddable purples as soon as you can. And then usually, vendor number 2 for planet are the mod vendors. And so here's your, your barrels, your armorings, your enhancements, and all this stuff. So just every, 5 levels or so, just make sure that you're constantly upgrading the stats in your moddable gear. There is some fairly cheap moddable gear you can get on the GTN, so it's something you can definitely look at. But every server will be a little different on that as well. So part 2 on that was more of the end game question, and that's a little difficult to answer based on what you like doing for end game. If you are a raider, then you're going to be raiding to get your end game gear. If you're not, then you could be PvPing, you could be flashpoints, maybe tacticals, or something along those lines. Now, I have found out from raiding, when you sit there and you farm the same raid over and over and over and over, eventually everybody gets geared up and the junk gear just gets greeted out. So in the past, I've been able to gear out my companions in the junk raid gear that nobody wants. But other than that, again, on the fleet, you've got these vendors, and it's also in the supply area. It's on sort of the closer to the inner ring section. These are basically, if you want to call them the raid gear vendors, but again, with 3.0, they've switched this one over to basic comms, so you can get 186s with just basic comms. So if you do your dailies or your flashpoints or your different items out of your group finder that might get you elites or ultimates or basic, you can basically just go to these vendors here and buy whatever you want for gear. See, this one's 192s, and this one is 198s.
For the Emperor.
But that would be my best advice I could give you for endgame. It really just depends what you're doing. Raiding, questing, PvPing, so forth and so on. And the final question for today comes in from Edward E. He asks, as a new MMO player, I always hear the term hotkey. I have tried using them, but honestly, I can't get used to it. I still find myself clicking on my skill bar with the mouse. Is this the wrong way to play SWTOR? If not, is there an advantage to using hotkeys? Well, I will say that I've got to answer this question very carefully because this is a very sensitive subject for gamers in general or MMOs overall. The baseline of the answer is play however you want and don't let anybody tell you different. That's the baseline answer. But with that being said, there's the great debate on whether or not hotkeying is more efficient than button clicking or maybe even a gaming mouse. What's the most efficient? And people will fight back and forth because everybody loves the way that they do things, and you can't tell anybody different. It is possible to be very, very successful as a clicker. It is. But is hotkeying more efficient? I would have to say no. And the reason for this is because using another method, whether it's the gaming mouse, the clicker, whatever, if there's a point where you can just get so efficient at it, it's not going to matter. I mean, personally, I use a combination. I have one of the really nice Razer mice, and I'll use that. And then sometimes I will just do the manual clicking. It really depends on what's going on. Before I got my gaming mouse, this was probably, it was well over a year ago, when we were doing raids and probably maybe EC, maybe even 2 years ago. EC, the first stuff in Terra from Beyond. When I was experimenting around, I was doing the clicker thing in those. And we were running a parser. Everybody's in, generally the same gear. And I was top DPS. Or if I wasn't top, I was maybe second. So, again, it's all on what you feel comfortable with. I mean, the last point I think I'll make on this is, let's say you're in a raid group and everybody has the same gear, hypothetical, and you're always last on the DPS chart. Then maybe something's going wrong. Maybe you have to look at something. But other than that, I'll stick with my initial comment and just say, again, play how you want to play. Don't let anybody tell you different. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I will go ahead and do it for this week's episode of the TOR Report. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And with that being said, everybody keep playing and have fun.